aboard the Baltic, I might just have enough money to sail around Cape Horn to San Francisco instead of travelling across land.
Or you might just end up losing all of our invested money and put us in even more debt," Gracie interrupted angrily. Choosing to ignore his wife's comments, Joshua held out his hand to his sons.
"You young men are in charge now, and I know I can trust you both to do a good job in taking care of the farm. And your mother."
Feeling as relieved as their mother was to see the back of their father for a while, Oliver and Archie retained a serious face as they shook their father's hand. The same thoughts filled their heads, and they both knew they would do a far better job with the land than their pa had ever done, and their poor mother would be free from his constant physical and verbal abuse.
"Don't worry, Pa. You go make your fortune. We'll take good care of everything."
"Yeah," echoed Archie.
"You can depend on us, Pa." "Goodbye, little Gracie."
He bent over to reach her, brushing a light peck upon her cheek.
"Don't get any fancy ideas while I'm away, woman," he whispered in her ear. "Remember, you're still my wife."
Joshua never failed in bringing out the worst in Gracie, and as she coaxed herself to refrain from any undignified actions in front of such a huge crowd, her foot was itching to leave the floor and kick Joshua in the shin, temporarily removing his smarmy grin. Telling herself that he'd soon be setting sail across the Atlantic, she furtively prayed that God would see fit to punish him, and that he would suffer from severe seasickness throughout the entire journey, putting an end to his on-board gambling plans. "How could I possibly forget, Joshua Browning? The deafness in my left ear will always remind me of the countless times I've had to suffer your right fist."
"No matter how tempted you become, if I return home to discover that you've sold our land to that bloody Marshall, you'll be praying that your mother never bore you."
With those being his final words, Joshua Browning hurriedly picked up his old and battered carpet bag and marched towards the gangplank, never once looking back at Gracie, who was left fuming, but with tears of relief in her pale blue eyes. They stood on the quayside, surrounded by the emotional crowds who were waving their loved ones off. Joshua, however, couldn't be seen anywhere on deck, which didn't come as a surprise to Gracie or her handsome 14-year-old sons. Her vexed expression didn't go unnoticed, and as Oliver and Archie breathed a huge sigh of relief, knowing that their life would be far happier now that their pa was out of it, they each linked arms on either side of their mother, suggesting that they should make haste on their 15-mile journey home. Blinking away her tears, Gracie smiled proudly at her young men as they towered a head above hers.
"What did Pa say to you to make you so angry, Ma?"
probed Archie. "Archie, stop your prying. It might be personal and private." Gracie often forgot that Oliver was only an hour older than his brother. He seemed years ahead of him in maturity, and was an overly sensitive lad. She prayed that Archie would catch up with his brother one day, even though she found some of his childish ways quite endearing. He would always be the one to openly display his emotions, and still needed his mother's constant reassurance. "Here's no secret, boys. Your pa simply warned me not to sell our land to Squire Marshall, even if we become destitute."
"I hate that bloody stuck-up Cameron Marshall, and I hate every one of his arrogant family," expressed Archie.
"Don't hate anyone, Archie. It's not a pleasant characteristic for a young man to harbour."
"Why can't he just leave us alone?" stressed Oliver. "Doesn't he own enough of Cheshire already?"
"He certainly does," Gracie agreed, "and that's why he's itching to get his hands on our tiny patch. It annoys him and his family that we have right of way through his land to reach Hatherton Farm. He views our presence like a festering boil upon the middle of a beautiful face." Oliver and Archie laughed at their mother's strange simile.
"We'd best make sure that we earn enough money to purchase at least one mule to help us with the ploughing next year," declared Oliver in a worried tone.
"Don't fret now, Oliver. You don't imagine that your mother was foolhardy enough to hand over every item of worth to your pa? I still have your late grandmother's